Only 30% of 2025 college graduates found full-time jobs in their field of study. 33% are still unemployed and actively searching. Here's the one thing that really gets me. 48% say they feel unprepared to even apply for an entry level job. Not unprepared to do the work, unprepared to apply.
Hmm. That's not a resume problem, and that's not a GPA problem. That's a readiness problem. And that's exactly why we built Career Blueprint Company.
Welcome to Building Your Career Blueprint. I'm Chris Dotson.
And I'm Tom Borg.
We're the co-founders of Career Blueprint Co. And this podcast exists to help college students and recent graduates do what too many programs fail to teach, actually launch a career. Not just land a job, build a career with intention, with confidence, a design. Each episode, Tom and I will break down what's really happening in the job market, what employers actually want, and how students can develop the mindset, skills, and habits to get hired and keep advancing. We'll bring in data, we'll share stories, and we'll give you the tools you can use right now.
That is so right, Chris. Hey, today, before we get going, let's give the folks a little background on who we are and why we're doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go first, Tom. I spent about 5 years working at Eastern Michigan University doing talent management and leadership development work, seeing firsthand how students showed up to career fairs, interviews, and their first jobs and where the gaps were. And today I run a company called Holistic Leadership Solutions, which is a leadership development consultancy based here in Michigan. I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach, held a master's in HR and organizational development from Eastern Michigan University, and I work with organizations across healthcare, higher ed, nonprofits to help build leadership infrastructure. But Career Blueprint Go came out of a simple question. What if we could give students the preparation most programs skip before they graduate, not after they struggle?
Yeah. And Chris, for our listeners here today, so my name's Tom Borg. I'm a business consultant. Primarily, that's what we were doing for a number of years. Matter of fact, over 25 years I've been doing that, working with a number of business clients, individuals, organizations, certified a number of different assessments that are out there, which I use with my clients. However, one of the keys I think that Chris and I both bring, and I'm proud of, is got a bachelor's degree, got a master's degree. So we've been there, I've been there, and I know what you need to do to get noticed in the workplace. And I think that's one of the keys that we're bringing and I'm bringing to the podcast is that experience of what are employers looking for? What do they want with students? And how can we help these students get ready to deliver?
Yeah, beautifully said, Tom. And as you were speaking, it took me back to when I graduated my undergrad back in 2008. And some
Whoa,
people remember that
2008.
as yeah, the Great Recession, as we called it at the time, wasn't an ideal time.
Yeah.
Many would say that is the case today as well. We've had a number of things that have inhibited some of the abilities that students should have, but maybe don't, at least from an employer's perspective. At this point in time, we've got the onset of AI, which is potentially chomping into some entry level opportunities as well. So what we need to do is be even more intentional about how we can learn to succeed. But I also understand the fear, the uncertainty, the excitement, all of the things that go into that pot of when you're graduating, but not really knowing what's going to be next. So anyway, I'm excited to get started with this program. Tell a little bit of my story, Tom, you to share some of yours as well too, some of the lessons we've learned along the way. I think
Right.
as college graduates ourselves, but also people who've worked in industry for a number of years, and we've seen a lot of the characteristics that really set up performers to be successful in their career. I think one of the things we came back to and have come back to multiple times is why do we have to wait until later on to develop these skills? A lot of the things that we are going to be teaching folks are things that you may learn as a person who gets into leadership, but a lot of leadership is self-leadership. And that's a lot of what we're getting at the heart of here is how we grow our confidence and competence and build the skills, capabilities that are going to help you to thrive in today's marketplace, and beyond. So these aren't just tools, right, Tom, that are just helping you to get this first job, but as at each step as you're getting promoted or considering career transitions, you'll be able to come back to these tools again and again.
That's right. Chris, what we're doing is we're helping our clients, our student clients, build a lifetime strategy so that they can enter that workplace, get into the career they really want to get into, and not like that first statistic we quoted at the beginning of our podcast, where they're getting in the fields that they don't necessarily want to be in. And that's not a great way to start a career journey. So that's one of the things we're going to work with our students is to help them prepare, help them do the things that are necessary. We know that a lot of parents, a lot of students think when they graduate, they're going to be ready. That's not what the employers are saying out there. In some cases, employers are resistant to hiring someone out of college because they just know they're not really ready yet. They don't fit in. They're not the type of employee they want to hire, at least this time.
Yeah, and I was actually just on a phone call yesterday talking to somebody who works with a lot of different small businesses. And she
Mm,
was saying, look, I'd love to be able to hire more entry level people. Like we have a use for it. But the amount of ramp up time it would get them to be ready from a professionalism standpoint, it's just not worth it. We need people who are more refined and more ready to go. And I think that's a lot of what we're trying to solve for here.
yeah.
So as we launch into it, Tom, today we're going to focus on our topic, which is the career launch gap. We're going to unpack why so many graduates aren't ready for the real world and what we need to change. But let's start with a little bit of the data and the facts. So there's some numbers that are pretty striking here.
Mm,
First is this job market reality. Only 30% of recent grads found jobs in their field. 3 out of 10. A
wow.
third of them are still unemployed and searching. 76% of employers hiring the same or fewer entry level workers as they were before. So we're not growing, we're maintaining at the most, and maybe even shrinking. And people are calling it the toughest entry level market in 5 years. We've seen. So that's the job market reality. A couple of
Mm,
things: the skills gap. 30% plus gap between how students rate themselves and employers rate them, especially in leadership, professionalism, and communication. These being three of the most important ones that we're missing. And we're talking about self leadership in this case here for entry level jobs here. 56% of unprepared grads say job specific skills are their biggest gap. 53% of employers say grads struggle with eye contact and communication, even being able to make and maintain good eye contact, during the interview.
mm.
And those are just some of the striking things that we see. So, Tom, what stands out to you when you're thinking about students being ready here? Where are you seeing some of this disconnect?
Well, as we kind of alluded to earlier, students think they're ready, but they're not. The job place, the people that do the hiring, they were seeing these inconsistencies, these inadequacies, and they're just not ready to pull the trigger on someone that's going to require a lot of overhead in terms of time and energy to get them up to speed. So that's a critical area that we want to help our students avoid, and that is to be prepared for that job search, be prepared for those interviews, and that means doing things they haven't been doing over the last 4 or 5 years in college. So that's one of the places we definitely zero in with our efforts.
Yeah, I really appreciate the time. One of the things I've been thinking about is well too is we have a certain segment of our student population who may be a little bit more introverted or more socially shy and may not
Mm-hmm.
project the same level of confidence as some of the other folks will. And fair or unfair, the reality of it is the best at interviewing are typically the best at getting the jobs. They're the most likely to get the jobs. Now,
That's it.
it's ideally in an ideal world, it's a meritocracy. We're only hiring for the person to be the best person for the job, but you have to be able to, sell yourself to a degree as well. So we also need to focus on, and a lot of the students we've worked with so far, the capability is very clear. It's just about growing their level of confidence and belief in themselves, and then their ability to communicate how they are going to provide value.
That's right. Yeah, we want to give them the opportunity to develop these skill sets. That's what we do in a structured classroom setting where they're able to work on strategies, skill sets that are going to allow them to feel more confident and as a result go out and be more confident and to do the things necessary. Now, we're talking about a lot of students that come to us, they're not necessarily graduated just yet, but they're smart enough to recognize that they're in their either junior or senior year. They need to get out there and get those internships working for them. They need to have the confidence to land those internships, quite frankly. And that, again, is something we can help them with when we can get them in a structured environment, work with them on a consistent basis. It's like taking up the game of golf. If you want to play golf and you want to learn how to do it, you hire a coach, you hire an instructor, but you don't just take one session and that's it. No, you're going to go to a course, probably 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks, where you're going to have a period of time where you can practice ideas out, learn how to use them, uncorrect some bad habits you may have developed over the time before you started. But the idea is you want to do it with spaced repetition in an environment that's positive and reinforces the positive growth. That's what we're working on here. That's what gets the fastest results.
I think it's a really nice analogy, Tom. Like it's like perfecting a golf swing, if there ever is such a thing. I don't know. I certainly don't have it. But those that do get to the range regularly and they have a swing coach, they have
Yeah,
somebody there who can help give that in the moment feedback in a way,
right.
that the student can receive it. And I think that's so powerful is to think about how do you get people into an environment where that's possible. And so
Mhm.
much of what students are getting in higher education is they're learning technical skills, that are learning about their area of expertise that they're majoring in. What they're not getting a major in is professionalism in communication and in things like self leadership. We're seeing
Mhm.
decreased involvement in things like Greek life and extracurriculars as well too.
Right.
More classes are being moved online or in hybrid situation. So we're just getting, as you're talking about it, less and less reps with this
Mhm.
professional communication. Students are to stand up, introduce themselves, take their space, shake somebody's hand, make eye contact, ask a question, getting to know other folks. Like there's just
Mhm.
a lot of these things that we're just missing opportunities in how to build it. And so what we need to do is we really need to rethink maybe a little bit of how education is handled in that regard, but we also need to support the folks that are getting ready to graduate today, who
Yes.
may have had some of these things. Like I know you've talked about, we've talked about before, but
Mhm.
you had mentioned to me before we started recording, like even like the pandemic, is one example. But if you want to get into a little bit of that, some of the things that are kind of working against, these students just because of what's happened in the environment, what's happened in the world over the last few years.
That's right. There's a number of whammies that they've experienced right from the beginning. Let's talk about COVID. When that hit back in 2020, there late 19, a whole college generation that was going to be entering into the college experience was already put at a handicap. They were not going to be in live classes. They're going to be working from home. I mean, how do you develop social skills there? Not too easily. Next thing up, what happened once they got into that, it was the idea of just being able to overcome some bad habits that they were developing. And I'm going to call them bad habits because it's not helping them a whole lot. And that is social media. A number of students have been raised on that whole platform, and a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. However, it does do a number on them in terms of handicapping their ability to develop their communication skills, so one-on-one skills. Chris, you alluded to this earlier. The idea of eye contact. If they can't give good eye contact in an interview, my goodness gracious, they're probably not going to be able to do that on the job either. So these are other things that have been handicapping them, everything from social media to COVID. And then, of course, we've got a protective generation, right? We've got parents and their parents that were a little too protective with the young people that they were raising. And as a result, they have been sheltered from an awful lot of rejection, from uh, failure. You just can't give everybody a trophy because they show up. That's not how you build character. So that's a couple things that we're hampering this generation. Another thing we have to think about is the fact that many times if people aren't out there getting some part-time work as they go through high school, that's a great place to start. This is where you start to build these social skills, where you start to build some networking skills. You start to understand what does it take to uh, be part of a business or a company. These are things that will help an individual, but if they're not there and now they're in college and they're getting ready to graduate, they're behind the eight ball when it comes to really being able to qualify to be considered as a job candidate for a position that might open up in an organization or company.
Yeah, really good point. We're living a lot more time in the virtual world. Pick your social media platform, as you will, but just spending so much time there and less time in person.
Yeah.
Uh, but you are oftentimes going to be selected for a position based on an in-person conversation or a beginning, conversation like we're having right now on the Zoom screen. And if we don't have the ability to communicate effectively, and we don't have stories that we can draw upon, we're setting ourselves up for failure here. So,
Yeah.
it is about learning some sort of technical expertise, but employers want more than that.
Oh, yeah.
They want somebody who they know is going to be a lifelong learner, who's got growth mindset,
Mhm.
Who's got an attitude of gratitude and a can-do attitude to go along with it? Are they a team player? Are they somebody who can think critically? Are they somebody who can manage their emotions effectively? There's a lot that employers are expecting, and we need to be able to be prepared to manage around that. And
Chris,
so there's a lot that needs to change. Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
one of the things you just mentioned there earlier, when they show up, and do they know how to shake hands? I mean, that sounds simple and everybody should know how to do that, right? No, they don't. So what do you do when you meet an adult for the first time in a
Mhm.
job interview? You better have a good firm handshake. You better look that person square in the eye. You better say their name back to them as they give it to you, and have some professional presence when you're in that environment. So again, that's not something that's taught in college, unfortunately. This is something that they have to learn outside of that structure. So that's one of the things we do focus on the street skills, skills that you're going to need when you're in that interviewing opportunity, maybe when you're in those networking situations, just when you're in those social situations. These are things we're going to develop. We want you to develop to be able to be better prepared when that career opportunity comes knocking.
Exactly. So let's talk about we've talked about some of the problem. Let's talk about what are some of the things that needs to change. Let's think about it from a couple of different lenses. We got for universities, for students, and for employers. Some things that we think we could look at doing things a little bit differently at each level. At the
Mhm.
university level, for those listening from university administration to this podcast, really more of a move from content delivery to experiential learning. We really need to get that experiential piece locked in more. We've already started to see some of this transition happening. There are great examples that live out there. There's some great consultants that are doing great work from groups like Thinking Collaborative, or if you want to look at more K through 12, Alpha Schools down in Austin, Texas, provides a really good example of some of the things that are being done in a really innovative way that are driving home some of these lasting skills that are going to help students to compete. But also think about how do we partner with employers on curriculum design? What are employers saying we need these folks to be able to be focused on? What about a dual track curriculum where you're not just learning technical but professional expertise as well too? The way I envision, you go through 124 credits as an undergrad. What if every one of these credit hours we were working on professionalism in the classroom at every time when I need to speak, I stand up and I say, "Hi, I'm Chris Dotson. Here's
Yeah.
something I have to contribute to the conversation." Every time I'm walking around to talk to somebody new and do a little conversation with one of my peers in the room, I shake their hand and ask them what their name is. And I always ask a question before I start anything myself. What if we started to teach this 15 credit hours at a time every semester over 4 straight years? How much more ready would folks be prepared? Which isn't full upskilling potentially in a change in how we're approaching it for professors and faculty members and administrators to live by example here. But this, are a couple of things. But career readiness really being a core competency of the college experience and the university curriculum, not an afterthought, not an afterthought there.
Yeah, yeah, Chris, that's a great example there. And if we could get universities to start thinking that way, and I'm sure some of them out there are doing that, but to be proactive in the approach of helping their students be ready for the real world and employing some of those practical exercises, strategies as part of every class, that's definitely going to make a difference. Now, for students, the last thing they want to hear is they're going to show up to the job place and not have all the tools they need. Well, unfortunately, that's the truth. So they need to
Mhm.
start thinking proactively themselves and being prepared. So what does that mean? It means career prep, doing that early, during school, not after graduation. Parents, grandparents, if you're listening to this, help those young people out, encourage them to get that experience, to get out there and to get those internships or part-time jobs or just getting out to social events so they can actually get some experience being around other people. Then it's the same thing, build a proactive job search strategy. Start thinking,
Mm.
buy some good books. There's some great books out there in the marketplace about how to prepare a college student for the real career that comes after school. Start doing the homework in that area. That's going to be very helpful. Develop a mindset, begin developing a mindset of professional behaviors, and not just the book learning or the technical knowledge that you're getting from school. Then, hey, get feedback from the people you come across. Ask them for honest assessments of how you came across in that conversation, or maybe put together some mock interview opportunities for themselves or with the help of their parents, grandparents, teachers, coaches. And as a result, they start to get a feel for what this is going to be like. You know, you get better when you start doing things on a regular basis and you fail a few times. That's all part of it. But you've got to get moving in the direction of where you want to head.
I love what you said there, Tom. That last bit really stood out to me. Getting comfortable with failure.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the things we teach in our curriculum and in our program. Highly successful people fail significantly more often than those that just, kind of plowed through their career because they keep taking chances and they're not afraid of failure. Failure is feedback. Failure is how you get better. The only way to expand your comfort zone is to step outside of it. And so that's one of the things we work on is how do we step outside of that comfort zone? How do we acknowledge the fear of this brain that's hardwired to keep us safe? And how to navigate around those. What are those defaults in our brain that are slowing us down? And we help them to navigate through four of the core defaults that slow down our ability to take action. And how do we learn to navigate around those effectively through some of it? So we get clear on who we are, but we also need to get clear on acknowledging that, hey, this brain, while it serves us a lot of times, also is going to mix our head with some things that are going to slow us down from taking the action that's going to help us to build a fulfilling career. And that is such a big piece of this.
Yeah, Chris, you're hitting it right on the head. That is, we got to be comfortable with failure. We got to be able to get out there and just have fun with it, and realize that no one's perfect and that the more you fail, the better you get at that. I think somebody once said a long time ago, it's not how far you fall, it's how high you bounce that counts.
Mm,
It's what you do to come back. I mean, we're all going to fail in life, and that's part of living. So if we prepare for that and have plan B, plan C, what are you going to do next? Now you're moving in the right direction. And as you mentioned, every successful person out there, every book that's written about success, they talk about all the times you have to fail first. Well, if you think about it, it's not really failure, it's a learning experience. It's learning how to do it better the next time. That's really what it comes down to. And that's what we want to focus on in our programs, help people learn how to prepare to succeed by failing first.
beautiful. It's a great reframe to think about failure as a learning opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The only failure is just not getting back up or not keep going. Like just learn from it and keep moving forward. Those who end up being highly successful, they just persist longer than others do. They just don't give up. They keep pushing forward. And here's another one that I think is really powerful. They're willing to look silly just a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
Because guess what? You might look a little silly as you're building a new skill or a new capacity or new competency here, and that's okay. We learn to let go of that of my ego driving the engine or of social pressure and how I might look. It's your life to live. You want to build the success story of yours. You got to be willing to go to the beat of your own drum and be comfortable. Just say, you know what? Okay, I got to handle that a little bit better. That's
Yeah,
interesting. I guess I'll do this a little bit differently next time, and
yeah.
and be okay with that. 1% better every day.
We're teaching a mindset, Chris, aren't we? We're teaching a mindset for people to understand that, hey, it's okay to be themselves. It's okay to want to get ahead. And it's okay to fail in the process, but look at it as a learning process. And you can't
Mhm.
lose with that approach. That's just one of the best ways to look at life, I think.
Well said. Well said. And so the good news is we've started to get into a little bit of this. This gap is fixable, and this is why Career Blueprint Company exists.
Mm-hmm. So why don't we tell a
So
little bit about what we're building, Chris? Go ahead. Let's start with
yeah,
that.
let's do it. So it's a Career Blueprint Co. is a college to career development program. We're going to help students and recent graduates learn the skills, tools, and mindset to get hired and keep advancing. Our flagship program is structured and it covers several things, including mindset and self-awareness, goal setting and purpose, professional communication, resume, and personal branding, networking. And we're not just talking about doing networking as far as teaching you the skills, but actually getting you structured networking opportunities out in the community as well too. How to do a proactive job search, so we're not just doing spray and pray and hoping for the best here, but how do we actually take a multi-pronged approach to a job search? How do we do interview mastery? So you actually get to work with Tom and get feedback from us in the real interview settings as well too. And we do partner with some other recruiting agencies and professional employers where you can get some practice as well there. We'll cover things like salary negotiations as well and what to do after you land the job. Not just getting the job, but again, we want to teach us tools and mindsets and behaviors that are going to help you to thrive in year one and beyond. With that, we use a couple of different really powerful assessments. We use the Clifton Strengths Assessment from Gallup and the Trimetrics EQ. So as I mentioned, I'm the Gallup certified strengths coach in the group, and Tom has been certified with Trimetrics for years and brings a lot of great value. Because one of the things we foundationally believe is this starts with self-awareness. And you have to have strong self-awareness. You have to know what your strengths are, and you have to learn how to have high levels of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is one of the biggest derailers of the career. You might start off well, but if you can't manage, emotions and relationships effectively, good luck. So it all starts with a level of awareness. But this is as much as I think it's a hand-on development experience. This isn't a
Mhm.
webinar series. This is a cohort style learning model, which is undefeated as far as being the best way to learn. And I will fight anybody who says otherwise. All right, not with hands, maybe with words. I'm not a structured fighter here. You probably most people out there probably beat me up. But all kidding aside here, the live experience for those of you who may have had the opportunity to be in a cohort learning environment where you get to show up over the course of several weeks with the same people, continue to grow your skill set, grow your confidence with other people, and build relationships with people that often will last a lifetime is one of the more powerful experiences you can get in a professional setting. I've loved every single one I've been through. It's one of the most powerful experiences I think you can have. And so I'm really excited to start to bring this to, college graduates and college students here in the near future.
Absolutely. Chris, the one thing we have to reiterate here, we take the approach of a proactive job search. And we know through the research that has been done that most jobs that are hired for are done not from online apps, but it's other
Mhm.
ways through internal networking, through hiring within when the company hires within their own organization, or they reach out to people they know that can refer people to them. So we're going to teach our students how to be proactive in searching for that job and being able to really do what it takes to be prepared. And that goes over a number of things, not just reaching out for that position, but reaching out for those informational interviews. That's proactive when you're looking at understanding what's out there and what you can learn about you, what you can do to be more prepared in your search as well. So, and back to the idea of the strengths, Clifton strengths that we use in the Trimetrics EQ, these are validated assessments. And as Chris mentioned, if you are able to understand yourself better, you're going to do just that much better of a job communicating who you are once you know who you are to someone else. And that could be your next employer.
That's right. Oh, well said. Know who you are, be able to communicate who you are, live into your strengths, and also be able to navigate around your blind spots,
Mhm.
which we will work with folks on as well too. And we'll teach strategies for how you do that. Because you know what, well-rounded is a myth. We are all specialized with the way our brains are built, but we're also going to teach some things that are going to help them to build a wide range of skills that can help them and help them to identify how to navigate this first big career launch, but also as they pivot and grow in their career as well too.
Mm-hmm. So presently, right now, we have our own classes that we offer. We are looking to develop relationships with universities to bring this directly to students before they graduate. But at the present time, we have our own class that we have created and pulling out great results with the past classes that we've had. So back to you, Chris.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. And so for those who are interested, please visit careerblueprintco.com. We'll include the link in the show notes as well, too, for you to be able to do it. There's a free assessment for students to be able to take right on the website. There's also resources for students, for parents, and for universities as well, too. So if anybody has specific interests and are interested in applying for the program, we are launching the next cohort early in the fall. So please reach out soon. We do have a limited number of spots that are available. But starting to wrap up with a few key takeaways. One, the career launch gap is real and the data proves it. Students often overestimate their readiness. Employers see it differently than they do, and we need to be able to evaluate that. The job search is a skill, and most graduates were never taught how to do it effectively. The hidden job market rewards relationships, not applications. That's another thing that we're going to get into as well. So how do we develop these relationships with people in our field? But I want you to, the most important thing here, this is fixable. This is learnable. This is
Yes.
teachable. One of the things I learned recently is if physics says it can be done, it can be done. If physics says it can, it can't. And guess what? There's nothing in physics that says we can't learn how to do a job search effectively and grow those right types of skills. So let's get into the ins and outs of how we can get this career launch done right and this career readiness built and our infrastructure built for how we can build a thriving career. So we're not just doing okay in our job, but we are thriving in our career. Because one of the things that Gallup teaches the world and has shown it again and again, one of the foundational things for a life well lived is a job that you find meaning in. So
That's
let's
right.
help people to find that.
Yeah. So if you're a student or a recent grad listening to this, don't wait for someone to hand you a career. Build it by design. That's what we're here to do to help you accomplish that. Chris?
All right. Thanks, Tom. Thanks to all of our listeners. Tune in. We'll have another episode coming out next week, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Take care.
Thank you.